Hi, what you're about to see is an interview with a vendor in the space in and around data mesh. We'd like to thank Nick Heudecker for graciously doing these interviews with vendors. We would also like to make it clear that the data mesh community and data mesh learning doesn't necessarily endorse anything that these vendors are talking about, but that we wanted to give them a voice to talk about what they may offer in the space, so people are aware of vendors, because obviously if everybody has to build everything themselves, the data mesh is going to be pretty hard. So with that, we really thank Nick for doing this great work, and we hope that this is good and useful to you.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick Heudecker, and I'm back with another episode of Data Mesh Learning for the vendor community. Today I'm joined by Manish Sood from Reltio. Manish is the CEO of Reltio, and I believe you've been the CEO since the company was created, correct?
Yes, I'm the founder and CEO at Reltio.
Excellent. Reltio is in the master data management space, and we're going to talk about how MDM plays in the data mesh concept. And I'm hoping you can also really give a bit of an explainer about what master data management is and kind of where it fits, right? Whenever I encountered MDM, it always seemed overly academic to me, and it was hard to link it to business outcomes. So maybe start there, maybe do a quick intro, and then let's jump right into the MDM story.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, thanks for, first of all, having me on the show. And, great question about master data management. Not only has it been somewhat academic, but it has been difficult as a problem for a lot of companies to solve. And, I'll give you some dimensions of complexity as a starting point around it. First of all, today we live in an enterprise environment where there are a growing number of data sources. Different types of applications that everybody is using, because it's no longer, I have wall-to-wall Salesforce or wall-to-wall SAP, and I never have to think about fragmented, siloed data. That's not the situation anymore. Everybody has hundreds of different applications. Even a business, the size of Reltio is running about close to 100 plus different applications end to end. And this number only gets larger as we go to larger businesses, large enterprises. And that creates a lot of complexity, because none of these systems have a good understanding of the core sets of data your business runs on. And what I mean by core sets of data: customer data, supplier data, product data. These types of details are all fragmented and siloed, and there is no single source of truth. There used to be a time when just saying that my CRM will serve as the single source of truth for customer information, my ERP from SAP or some other vendor will serve as the single source of truth for all of my vendor data or product data. That used to be the scenario before, but because of today's fragmentation of the application and data landscape, that is no longer true. And that's where areas like MDM or technologies like MDM come into play, where we are able to not only take the data about these core entities, customer, product, supplier, from multiple sources, combine it together to create a singular record that will describe all the details about customer, product, or supplier information. And that is the role that master data was designed to solve. But and this problem has been around as long as more than one system has been in use, or more than one application has been in use in the enterprise. But the previous generation technologies didn't have the ability to solve this problem at scale. And what I mean by that is, the previous generation technologies were never designed to handle 300, 400, or 600 plus different systems. and taking data from those sources, combining it together to create the unified single source of truth information for
Okay,
these entities.
I want to jump in right there. So when I think about, what you're talking about of these golden records,
Yeah.
right? To me, it's like someone sitting in a room somewhere creating them and saying, nope, I'm taking these elements and I'm going to combine all of these things together. That's the golden record. No one else can touch it. No one else can change it. What you're describing is almost more of a proactive approach where an MDM solution would integrate with all of these different applications and it would kind of compose a golden record. Is that more accurate?
It would aggregate the information from where it is being created. Because, today, if you think about, somebody comes in, logs in a support ticket in your support system, the support team may be interacting with them for the first time. They may or may not have a customer record created with full details. So they'll create that record and then, tackle the support ticket. If somebody's in the sales function in the CRM system, they'll do the same thing when they have to engage with a customer, not knowing that, by the way, we have this customer in another line of business. So that's what I first of all mean by how fragmented our ecosystem in the enterprise landscape is. And because the creation or the engagement of these records is taking place at different touch points, you can no longer control how that information gets created, but making sure that you first, embrace that as a starting point, then you can start to think about the fact that if you were to gather the information from all those input points, then you can assemble or stitch together a golden record out of those contributing sources.
Okay. So once I've got this golden record, okay, what business benefits does it provide? Because in some ways it sounds like, okay, this is going to slow me down, right? I can't kind of do what I want. I have to go through this process of engaging in some way with this golden. So how does that work? Like what benefits am I getting? And how do you argue against the challenge that this might slow down operations?
Well, I would posit that not having a golden record is the biggest friction point that everybody encounters today in order to get to any business outcome. And I'll give you two very simple examples. First of all, even today, in today's day and age, with all the technology that is available, all the cloud data warehouses are available, it is still very difficult for somebody, who's, let's say, if you're a enterprise grade business, you're working with the Ford Motor Company across the globe. For you or somebody in your team to come up and say, what is the total amount of business that we do with Ford Motor Company at a global level across all the subsidiaries, all the affiliates, all the different companies that roll up under that brand?
That's an impossible question to answer.
Well, but why is it impossible?
Right.
Because it is, different silos, different sets of information. Nobody has the understanding of what is the total set of companies that roll up under the hierarchy of Ford as a global organization.
And even different business units may count customers in different ways as well. And so there's that friction as well. That's certainly a challenge that needs to be resolved.
So that's the first challenge. And if you don't have a good understanding of who you are doing business with, you can't answer the question, how much have we penetrated that account and how much white space still remains in that account? What is the cross-sell, upsell type of opportunity in that account? And the big reason behind that is you don't have a good understanding of what is the definition of a customer like Ford Motor Company in that type of a scenario. That's example number one. Example number two is, what you and I as consumers encounter every day, which is, let's say you work with a particular financial institution. In that financial institution, You have your retirement account, you have your savings account, you have your checking account, you have a credit card from them. You run into some problem, you look at your credit card, you call the 1-800 number behind it, and maybe it has to do with some credit that you should be able to get from them because you had a transaction, you canceled it out, and your bill wasn't paid on time, or something along those lines. Whatever the problem is, if it has to go from the credit card department over to the checking account type of a conversation, they will say, sorry, sir, we can't help you because that is a different line of business. Can you please call another number?
Yeah.
We encounter it all day long. This is not a technology issue. This is a issue with how disconnected the systems are and how siloed they are from each other. By the way, you as a consumer of those services don't really care what are the barriers behind the scenes. You expect a unified experience where you as a valued customer should be able to get the answers that you're looking for from the bank that you are transacting with.
No, those are good examples and certainly highlight a lot of challenges we both experience on a daily basis. I'm running through horror scenarios in my head when that's happened to me. Let's pivot and shift the MDM conversation, if we can, from the MDM as a net good, right, and what it does, to MDM in a data mesh, right? Data mesh is inherently decentralized, right? You've got data product owners and data teams. How have you seen companies adopt MDM as part of their data mesh story, or are they even doing that? Are they that mature?
Well, I think let's separate it out into two different areas. Are they that mature that they're, so far integrating these two concepts together or thinking about, how to connect the dots across these areas? I think that maturity is still in the very nascent stages. There is a growing awareness around the concepts of data mesh. There is certainly, large interest in understanding how data mesh can solve the problems or take the friction out of the equation, and how something like master data would fit into that core construct. But going back to that question, the way in which these two words are connected, think of data as a product concept, which is a core part of what data mesh tries to bring to life. And for those data as a product concepts, data domains are a key building blocks of the equation. And when you think about either the subject area of a particular data domain, what is the attribution, what are the details, what is the metadata that needs to be assembled or understood in order for that set of information to be useful, as well as who are the different subject matter experts or domain experts who will be involved in the constant evolution of understanding of that data domain definition. The governance model associated with it. Those concepts are core to master data management, because the core thesis that master data management started with, and this is where I think the terminology is evolving and the two worlds are coming together. The core concept was that if you have a siloed, fragmented landscape of data, and could be first-party data, could be third-party data, you need a unified view for a particular data domain so that you have a full understanding of who the customer is, or the supplier, or the product that you're trying to sell in the mix. And I'm just using those as an example. That list of nouns is somewhat endless because you will have information about employees, locations, sites, assets, all those types of things that your business runs on. But having a unified view of both the metadata as well as the data that is associated with it, so that you can then use it as the single source of truth to enable the next set of analysis or interactions. And in fact, a little bit of the extension of what data mesh proposed. Data mesh talks about how it will make it a better approach to managing and accessing analytical data at scale. I think the same needs to be extended into operational use of the information for these specific data domains. Because if you're opening an account with a bank and they already have you in another line of business, then they should be reusing that information instead of asking you to fill out all of the details once again from scratch from the very beginning. And that reuse of information, even in an operational process, is key or critical to the experience that you want to deliver.
So example from my real life. I sign up for a credit card with a certain company. I continue to get mail from them asking me to sign up for their card. Is that an example of kind of a master data management breakdown?
That is a big example, right? Simple thing at the surface. Yes, you still get mailers from them. You still get, those, please sign up for a credit card, and you're looking at it and saying, you have my exact name, address, information, where you're sending me the monthly, statement for the credit card that I already have from you. And somehow there is a disconnect between the marketing promotions team versus the actual business that they're running.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. How many times have you seen that you will receive those promotional mailers from retailers, multiple copies of those?
Yeah.
And each one of those glossy magazines that you receive has a cost associated with it.
Yep. Definitely. It sounds like, and I will admit, from my background in data, I've always been a longtime skeptic of MDM. I really have, and it sounds bad to say that with you on the podcast, but it sounds like the benefits that you've shared. It sounds like at a bare minimum, if you have an MDM program in place, it would certainly accelerate your data mesh rollout, because everyone would be singing from the same sheet of music, right? What is a customer? We know exactly what that customer is. Maybe every data product doesn't have to have every single field from that customer, but just being able to say, this is what a customer means to us. This is what a supplier means to us. This is where we go get that address data and so on. But to what you said earlier, we're kind of not there yet. I think we're there from a maturity perspective on MDM. Like, there's an understanding of what it is, but we're still waiting for the data mesh maturity to pick up a little bit and then bring those things together.
And I would look at it two halves of the same equation. One was about aggregating and assembling the unified view, and which is the master data management side of the equation, versus driving consumption of that same information for reusability. Because that is where the data mesh concept comes in and promotes that reusability for the information. You shouldn't have to go again to 50 different sources in order to figure out what is the right definition of the customer information or the product information. You should have all of that available to you so that you can promote more of the consumption of that information across the enterprise. And that single source of truth drives the greasing of the wheels for the rest of the enterprise to be able to move faster towards business outcomes.
So I think it's a fascinating value proposition for MDM. And then, I will admit, I remember when Reltio launched. I was at a very old, a Cassandra Summit ages. And you were one of the sponsors of that event here in Santa Clara. Where does Reltio fit? I know you're an MDM provider, but maybe talk a little bit about the product for a few minutes and what makes you different and stand out in the MDM market.
So, we definitely came from the previous experience of MDM and what had worked and what had not worked, because I was responsible for creating and working on the previous generation of the capabilities that are available from some of the large vendors. But a large part of the experience that drove us to think about creating Reltio was this explosion in the number of applications that every company was going through, and the further silos and fragmentation of information that were getting created at a faster rate and pace. So our goal was to create the new backbone as a software as a service capability on public cloud infrastructure, because we knew that both the number of silos as well as the volume of information that each company would have to handle for every data domain you can possibly imagine would only increase. And we needed a flexible foundation for that. But the second part of that was around the analytical and operational use. Because when you think about such data, the core information that your business runs on, right? If you're a financial institution, client data, securities data, other types of information about brokers and dealers. If you're in healthcare, you're thinking about patient and provider type of information and trying to get to a singular view of those types of entities. In those cases, it's the same information that you need for your analytics and the same information that you need for your operational digital processes that you're trying to bring to life. So creating the backbone that would allow us to tackle both operational and analytical needs and provide the information for consumption in both of those scenarios was the goal that we aimed for. And we've been able to deliver on that promise. That is the thing that differentiates us from the rest of the landscape in master data management. And when you take a step back and think about what we are solving, we are really solving data unification as the key problem. And there are three different flavors of data unification that we encounter and are able to solve for. First one is just being able to take disparate data from these disparate siloed sources and creating what we call a unified ID to identify the singular record that can be generated out of these different contributors. The second part of it is the ability to do the survivorship. Why does the system think that this address is better than the other address or phone number or email ID for Nick as a customer? Being able to do that kind of survivorship and create sort of the golden record that you talked about is the second flavor of the problem, data unification problem that we solve. And then the third part of the data unification problem is this notion of a 360-degree view, where you have the full information about Nick as a customer. It's not just the singular ID, not just the best attributes to use, for some of the contactability type of information, but also all the different types of information about the omni-channel engagement that is taking place. So if you're interacting with support through the support system, if you're interacting, with the call center through the IVR type of a system, or if you're coming in and buying something, from this retailer, any information about that, all those things are being captured in different systems. But if you take the sum total, that really forms the 360-degree view of you as a customer and your journey across these different touch points. And those are the three things that can only be solved by data unification as the overarching construct. And that's the problem that we are solving, whereas some of the previous generation technologies only solved one or maybe two of those problems in the past, and that too only for analytics, or sometimes only for operational. In our case, we are solving it across the OLTP and OLAP type of construct, really looking at it as the hybrid transactional analytical processing type of a construct.
You're dusting off quite a few acronyms in there, by the way. The OLAP and OLTP, that's not even really used anymore. But I remember HTAP quite a bit.
Yeah.
No, that's fascinating stuff. If people want to know more about Reltio, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Manish Sood at reltio.com. That's my email ID. Again, manish.sood@reltio.com is my email ID. And, on Reltio website, reltio.com, you can reach out to our team. And if you want to learn more about Reltio, that's the best place to see how customers are putting the Reltio connected data platform to use for solving these types of problems.
Awesome. I know we're coming up on event season. Are you going to be at any symposia or any other events this fall?
Well, one of the events that's coming up pretty soon for us is AWS reInvent, and we'll be presenting with AWS about some of the same concepts and how we are able to use some of the underlying capabilities and technologies, for larger scale and applying it to this kind of a problem set. And one of the most recent things that we also did was a similar kind of an announcement with Google Cloud, which came out in Google Next conference this week.
Yeah, just this past week.
Past week, where we have been, as a part of their data cloud offering, are now making these capabilities available as well.
Great. Well, I'll definitely see you at reInvent next month. And Manish, thank you very much for your time. This has been very educational. We'll get this posted and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Well, thank you once again, Nick. It's great to talk to you and talk about some of these concepts, which are becoming a bigger problem for every enterprise-grade business. And everybody needs a solution to these problems.